Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, we'll try to understand how actually India tries to fool China whenever it launches an important missile. Now, why are we taking this video today? Because recently, India tested its K-4 submarine launched ballistic missile from a coast of Vishakhapatnam. And this was done using the INS Arighat. Now, K-4 is a submarine launched ballistic missile and the test actually was not made public by the Indian government because it follows certain conventions. Now, this test is seen as a very important development in India's ability to retaliate in case of a nuclear war, which is called as nuclear deterrence. Now, why is this important or how India tries to hide data from China? This is what we are going to understand in our today's video. And the notes which I will be using in our today's session, in case if you want to download them, you can go to a particular Telegram channel called as ETS Live. And while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel also. So let us start by understanding what is this K-4 missile. It is an indigenously developed submarine launched ballistic missile which has a range of about 3,500 kilometers, which is significantly larger from the existing K-15 Sagarika missile which the Indian Navy uses, because the K-15 has a range of about 750 kilometers. Now, this missile is launched from a nuclear-powered submarines called as SSBNs from Arihant class submarine, and the recent test which was conducted was on board INS Arighat, the second submarine in the Arihant class submarines, and it was done somewhere off the coast of Vishakhapatnam. Where exactly, this data is known to no one. Now, there is a certain reason why India needs certain kind of deception, which is what we are going to understand. Let us first try to figure out why this test matters militarily. Now, for example, you need to understand, as this missile has a range of about 3,500 kilometers, it covers entire territory of Pakistan and it covers most of the territories of China, if not completely. Now, this also means that whenever we have the ability or we have the missile which has about 3,500 kilometers range, it also puts our submarines in safer waters. Now, suppose if the missile, if we were going to use, has a lesser range, our submarines would have to move in enemy waters in order to hit their targets in enemy countries. Now, when we are using K-4 like missile which has 3,500 kilometer range, it effectively means that our submarines deployed in Bay of Bengal can actually hit targets as deep in China. So that is why it is a very important development militarily. First of all, to protect our important marine resources like the nuclear powered submarines. Now, also let us understand where it fits in India's nuclear triad. Now, nuclear triad is basically ability of any country to launch nuclear weapons from land, air and sea. As far as land launch nuclear weapons is concerned, India primarily uses Agni series of missiles. For that matter, it can also use Prithvi series of ballistic missiles. As far as ability to launch nuclear weapons from air is concerned, India primarily relies on fighter jets like Sukhoi 30 MKI, Rafale, or even for that matter Mirage 2000 aircrafts. Now, the most important cog in this nuclear triad is your ability to launch nuclear weapons from sea, where missiles like K-4 and submarines like Arihant class submarines come in. And India right now has two Arihant class submarines, INS Arihant, INS Arighat, and the next in line would be INS Aridhaman, which is expected to get commissioned into Indian Navy shortly. And as I was saying, why do you think the ability to launch nuclear weapons from sea becomes so important? Because India follows the nuclear doctrine which is called as no first use policy. It effectively means that in case of any conflict, India wouldn't be the first one to launch a nuclear missile on its enemy. And this also means that it will be our enemy who will first hit us with a nuclear weapon. Now imagine in that case, you need to have the ability to be able to retaliate back with nuclear strikes, right? And this is where the sea leg of the nuclear triad comes in. Because suppose if enemy tries to attack our land and air-based assets in order to neutralize our ability to launch nuclear weapons. And this is where the sea leg comes in, because effectively these nuclear submarines remain hidden and they are submerged deep into waters away from plain sight. And therefore, this is the most important component when you have to retaliate against any nuclear strike. And this retaliation should be so massive that it effectively stops the conflict. And this is where India's K-4 missile fits in, because SSBNs are the most survivable leg of the nuclear triad, and having such kind of a capability reduces the incentives for the enemy to initiate preemptive strikes on India nuclear assets. right? Now, whenever India tests or anybody tests a missile, it is a mandatory requirement that the country who's testing the missile should issue a NOTAM notice. NOTAM means notices to the airmen. Because you need to understand the airspace is not just used for military purposes, it can also be used for civilian purposes. So we need to make aware of all the flights flowing in the region that yes, we are going to test a particular missile in this area. And in these NOTAMs, the countries usually disclose some kind of a data. What are the data? Countries disclose broad launch corridor, countries disclose what will be the impact zone. So these two data effectively tells you or gives you an idea of what kind of a missile or what is the range of the missile the India is trying to test. And in that NOTAM, the country also needs to disclose a narrow time window, which is usually a few days, when the test is expected to happen. Now, as soon as the NOTAM is issued by a country like India, this puts India and its adversaries in a cat and mouse game. What India wants to do in these kind of launches, it wants to hide or it wants to make detail as secret as possible away from the information of our adversaries. And on the other hand, our adversaries would want to know as much as information as possible. So this is basically a cat and mouse game which starts as soon as a country like India issues a NOTAM notice. And our adversaries, as soon as they get informed of these NOTAMs notice, they position their satellite and they deploy their ships in Indian Ocean region to find out as much as data as possible. So it is important for India also to have the ability to hide these data from getting found by our enemies. Now, what happens whenever India issues a NOTAM notice? China, it usually deploys its research and tracking vessels, which essentially are surveillance ships. And the purpose of these surveillance or Chinese surveillance ships in the Indian Ocean region would be to track the missile's telemetry, which is the trajectory it might follow. It would also monitor the splashdown zone so as to find out what is the effective range of these missiles. And it would also want to collect electronic and acoustic signatures, which are very important for the adversaries to plan for their war games. So these are the cat and mouse game. Both the launching country, that is India, and the surveilling country, that might be China or that might be any of our friends, are subjected to, especially when the NOTAMs are declared, because NOTAMs actually informs us where and when the test might happen and they make plans accordingly. Now let us understand how India tries to involve in deception, how India tries to fool its adversaries like China to hide as much as data or as much as information possible. Now what India usually does is that it issues multiple overlapping NOTAMs which are spread across different dates, different time windows, and it multiples or it shows multiple impact zones. And this issuance of overlapping NOTAMs on part of India is designed to overwhelm Chinese in order to find out the exact data. It forces Chinese ships to reposition repeatedly, and it also dilutes their confidence whether the test would happen or it won't happen, or it also stretches the amount of resources China deploys in the Indian Ocean region across multiple geographies. So even if they are able to find out some kind of information, those information won't be complete and won't be credible enough for Chinese to act on it. At the same time, India also gets involved in a cancellation tactic. If you'll realize, several NOTAMs that India issues of multiple areas, of multiple impact zones, they are allowed to expire, or they are allowed to lapse, or sometimes they are suddenly withdrawn. And this creates what is called as a false negative effect. Now, what is a false negative effect? When we allow our NOTAMs to expire or lapse without any action, or when they withdraw them suddenly, it actually gives an impression to the surveillance countries that the test is actually postponed, or the ships might even get relaxed that no, the test might not happen. And when after these multiple cancellation, the actual launch happens, this does not give the surveilling country the time to actually find out about the data. And this is what is a classical deception technique that India involves in order to avoid China from finding out about our critical information. Now, as I told you, the countries, they just don't solely rely on surveillance ships. They also reposition their satellites in order to find out the launch window or data as much as they can collect. Now, you need to understand these missile tracking satellites are essentially Earth observation satellites which follow a polar route. Now, whenever Earth observation satellites are deployed over a particular area, they won't be fixated on that particular area 24 hours a day. Essentially, these satellites take Earth's orbits and they usually scan a particular area in a particular time frame in a day. So what India does is that it finds out at which time the satellite is going to be above Bay of Bengal, and they would want to test when the satellite is scanning some other area in the globe, right? So this actually reduces the chance of optimal satellite alignment, and it forces reliance on ship-based tracking alone, and therefore the amount of data, even if the Chinese get, it's a degraded data which is of little or no use to them. So this is how India plans actually to fool Chinese surveillance measures. Now, why this kind of measures works well when the satellite, when the missiles have to be launched from nuclear powered submarines? Because whenever a missile needs to be launched from a nuclear powered submarine, the nuclear powered submarine is a mobile platform, and as it is hidden deep inside the water, it can change its patrol areas quietly, and it can also launch from unpredictable coordinates. So even if the surveilling countries like China know that the test might occur, they won't be in a position to know where these tests would occur from, and this gives India an edge. Now you must be thinking, why do we need to keep such kind of data as a secret? Now you need to understand, whenever a missile test happens, it has multiple features. What is the full range profile of K-4? What kind of heat or electronic signature it emits? Now you need to understand, whenever a submarine launched ballistic missile is launched from submarine, it does not get ignited as soon as possible. It first comes above water, which is called as cold launch, and then it ignites. And the timing when it ignites is of very critical essence for the working of those missiles. Similarly, the range, the accuracy of the missiles, all of these data are classified. We can only assume about them. So it is in our best interest to keep these data away from enemy's eyes, because these are gold standard data as far as intelligence is concerned, and it allows an enemy country to plan its defenses accordingly. So this is why we need to keep these kind of data a secret. Now, what kind of message did India send to China after this test? This shows, or this exercise done by India to fool China, it shows that we can test our submarine launched ballistic missile without them being fully mapped by our enemies. It also shows that China, even though they might deploy several surveillance ships or they might reposition their satellites, but still their ability to scan Indian Ocean region is not absolute. And India's sea-based deterrence, it is first of all hard to track and even harder to neutralize, because China can't find about our exact details. And this is what shows India's credibility as a nuclear triad or as an SS force is quite solid. Okay, so this is what was our understanding from our today's video. Now, I've curated a question exactly on the lines of UPSC, but before that, you need to understand the kind of topic we covered. It interplays between science and tech, internal security, as well as international relations. Now, these kind of interlinkages are very important as far as UPSC exams are concerned, because questions can be asked not just solely from one subject, but mix of 2 or 3 subjects, right? Now, this kind of an ability the student gets when they subscribe to Resolution Plus classes, because in these classes, we cover each and every important topics from UPSC, from different subjects in detail. You also get one-to-one mentorship, mock test, so that you can practice and get your doubt cleared, right? Now, these Resolution Plus batches currently are offered at half of the price, that is 50% off. And to make the deal sweeter, we are also offering double validity for students who take admission on or before 31st of December. To take admission, go to our website, and before making the payment, if you apply the code ATS Live, you're going to get maximum discounts, even more than this what we have told you, right? And these batches are offered separately for 2027 and 2028, so decide accordingly. And the question that I wanted to tell you, this is the question with reference to K-4 missile. Which one of the following statement is or are correct? Do let me know the correct answers in the comment section. The ones who get it correctly would get a thumbs up from my side. And to conclude, this is where you'd find the notes, the Telegram channel called as ATS Live. And if you have difficulty in locating this channel, you can always scan this QR code. So this is all from my side. Please have a very good day. We'll see each other again quite soon.